The Holy Gospel, according to Luke, is found in the 17th chapter.
Glory to you, O Lord.
On the way to Jerusalem, Jesus was going through the region between Samaria and Galilee. As he entered a village, 10 lepers approached him. Keeping their distance, they called out, saying, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." And when he saw them, he said to them, "Go and show yourselves to the priests." And as they went, they were made clean. Then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice. He prostrated himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him. And he was a Samaritan. Then Jesus asked, "Were not 10 made clean? But the other 9, where are they? Was none of them found to return and give praise to God except this foreigner?" Then he said to him, "Get up and go on your way. Your faith has made you well." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
Please be seated. Do you ever watch any of television's hospital dramas? I don't know which ones they have on TV now because I haven't been watching them, but I know I used to watch House semi-regularly and the occasional episode of ER. I even, many years ago of course, used to indulge in the occasional guilty pleasure of General Hospital. I've watched a number of these shows over the years, and I know I'm not alone. It's a popular genre with a long history. But why? Do we have an unhealthy taste for medical detail? I doubt it. Unless you're a doctor or a nurse, you probably aren't sitting there thinking to yourself, that's an interesting surgical procedure. What draws us to these shows is the human drama that surrounds the various ailments. It doesn't really matter what kind of fracture someone sustained when they fell off that ladder. What we really want to know is how this accident is going to change things for them and those around them. Perhaps they'll make a new friend out of the stranger next door who helps them out. Perhaps a secret will come to light or a discovery be made. Sometimes there are happy endings, sometimes not. But the crisis interrupts normal lives and things change. That's what fascinates us, those moments of change. Because so often that's what we're hungry for or fearful of in our own lives. Of course, our love for a good medical story goes back a ways. I grew up watching Marcus Welby, MD, and Ben Casey, and Dr. Kildare. I had a horrible crush on Dr. Kildare. But if we look at today's Bible readings, we can trace that line of fascination back much farther, thousands of years back. Both the Old Testament and Gospel readings contain stories that are squarely in this tradition. The people in them aren't healed by pills or surgery, of course, but by the miraculous action of God. That difference between these stories and modern medical dramas may make the Bible stories puzzling to us. But to the people who first told and heard these stories, the whole world was miraculous. Life was God's gift. Healing was in God's hands. They wouldn't have thought twice about the way these people were healed, any more than we ask technical questions about an episode of ER. These stories, just like our modern ones, were really about the people involved in them and their hidden agendas and mixed motives, revelations and reconciliations. Our Old Testament story comes from the book of Kings. Naaman was the commander of the armies of Aram, which was at war with Israel. Naaman was a great man in high favor with the king, but he had contracted leprosy. It was a terrible blow, not just physically, but professionally. Lepers were often excluded from society in the ancient world. They were regarded with suspicion and kept at a distance. How can he lead an army now? It must have seemed like a personal affront as well. Naaman's whole life revolved around being strong, but now he's weak, helpless, and disfigured. He's desperate for a cure, and so is his king. So when his wife's Israelite slave girl starts talking about a prophet in her country who could help, there's no hesitation. Naaman is sent off to the king of Israel to find a cure, with lots of gifts to smooth the way and a letter of introduction. Of course, it was never going to be that easy, any more than it is on ER. There would be no story if it was. There are politics involved. The king of Israel's heart sinks when he opens the letter. This is a no-win situation for him. If Naaman is cured, he will have strengthened a rival for power in the region. But if Naaman isn't cured, the king of Aram will see it as a deliberate snub, and all heck will break loose. Fortunately for Naaman and the king, Elisha hears of this in the nick of time and sends a message. "Let Naaman come," he says. "I'll take the responsibility on myself." The big problem, however, is yet to come. And it is far more difficult for Naaman to deal with because it lies within his own heart. Naaman is a great man, used to the red carpet treatment. So he expects that his healing will be spectacular, something befitting his status. But when he gets to Elisha's house, the prophet doesn't even come out to greet him. He sends a messenger. And the message he brings sounds like an insult to Naaman. "Go down and wash in the river." That's it. Where are the prayers and incantations? Where are the grand rituals? It isn't even much of a river, just a muddy trickle. He might as well have stayed at home and bathed in a decent Aramean river. It feels to him like a deliberate insult. They say that pride goes before a fall, but in truth, pride often comes after it as well and prevents us from accepting the help we need. Sometimes people would rather die, quite literally, than feel like they are losing face before others. Naaman has been so desperate for a cure, but when it's within his grasp, it looks as if he'll turn away from it, simply because he feels it is beneath his dignity. A man of his status, who has come all this way, surely ought to get something far more sophisticated than this. At the beginning of the story, it was a slave girl who said what needed to be said. Now again, it's the servants who speak up to Naaman. "Sir," they say, "can it really hurt to try? You're here. Why not do what he says?" And Naaman, fortunately, is persuaded. When he comes up out of the river Jordan, he is healed, not just in body, but in spirit as well. He comes back to Elisha to declare a new allegiance to Elisha's God, a God whose love you can't buy, love you don't get because you deserve it, but because you need it, no matter who you are or where you come from. He's released from the anxious striving that has marked his life, that obsessive need to impress others, even when he was ill, and it changes him completely. A lot of Christians talk about salvation as if it's all about what happens to your soul after death. Put crudely, it's a ticket to heaven. But that's not what the Bible says about salvation at all. In the Bible, salvation usually has far more to do with the here and now. It's about the healing of this world, the transforming of our inner attitudes and motivations, our relationships and our societies. It's about justice and love, things which bring heaven to earth for all of us, rather than something that lifts a chosen few to another realm when they die. It's about the kind of challenges that enrich our lives now and change our vision. That's what Naaman found. He was glad to be rid of his leprosy, but that wasn't the most important thing that happened to him that day. Just like the stories in ER aren't stories about medical conditions being cured, whether by pills or by prayer, but about human lives and relationships being redeemed, restored, and remade. Naaman will die one day, as we all do. There comes a point where neither medicine nor miracles will be able to stop that natural process. But true healing is not and can never be just about preventing or removing disease and staving off death. This story reminds us that the really important healing we all need is the healing that draws us closer to God and to one another. The healing that empowers us to love more deeply and live more fully. Naaman's pride almost prevented him from finding that healing, even though it was right in front of him. Like our modern medical dramas, his story gives us a chance to ask ourselves what healing we might really need and what might stop us from finding it. Perhaps it also reminds us that we don't have to wait for a crisis to reach out to God and to one another and ask for help.